Future Now Show. Brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam.
Greetings, dear listeners, to viewers from wherever you're listening to us or watching this. I'm Reto Brosi, the Managing Director of Migo Consulting in Switzerland, and I have the honor and the pleasure to host this episode of the Club of Amsterdam's Future Now show. I have a guest with me, a very interesting guest, George. A very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
What we're going to do is the next 45 minutes or so, I'll introduce George first, or I try to introduce him, which is a bit of a challenge looking at his very wide research background and his publications. And then we're going to talk about some parts of his most recent interest, his most recent research, so that you get an idea what George is focusing on at this moment in time. All right. So George Pór is a Hungarian-American social scientist. He's the founder of the Future How Center of Action Research. So that's not the future now, it's the future how. The founding vision of the center is putting AI into the service to humanity's phase shift to a more compassionate, anti-fragile world in which the highest value of the whole is the flourishing of all. George has been a researcher in collective intelligence and wisdom since the mid-80s when he lived in California, and his mentor, Doug Engelbart, introduced him to augmenting human intellect with computer technology. George has held various academic posts, including in the University of Paris, UC Berkeley, California Institute of Integral Studies, INSEAD, London School of Economics, University in Amsterdam, and many, many more. He has published extensively, both in books and articles. Okay, let's dive straight into it. George's more recent work and thinking and publishing is in the area of developmental AI, how it can help us, mankind, humankind, I should say, to evolve towards a more compassionate, wiser human beings and societies. That will be the mission of wisdom-guided and wisdom-enhancing collaborative hybrid intelligence, CHI, in teams and networks of symbiotically linked human and AI agents. So George, maybe over to you. Can you put some context and some explanatory words around that vision?
Well, maybe I should start. Where did I get and why did I get involved with AI? Well, it really started in the 1980s when I was mentored by Douglas Engelbart. I don't know whether you heard the name of Engelbart. He is the guy who invented the mouse and hypertext. And he was a computer visionary. And he was the guy who introduced me to the idea that unlike most people think, computers are not about number crunching. The main advantage that we can earn from our interaction with computers is become more intelligent, become wiser. So that defined my journey for the last couple of decades to figure out how that can happen. Because for most people, probably many people in the audience of this conversation also think of computers and AI also. It's about, it's a tool that can make us more productive, more efficient. And it's certainly true, but that is this aspect of AI is commoditized, became a commodity. That means that it is available to everybody. to every company, to every individual. So it doesn't provide any strategic advantage when it's a commodity.
Correct. At maximum you can get is a tactical advantage, but not a strategic. Yep.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So the strategic advantage, if we up the game, if we go for the greatest leverage from AI, which is augmenting human intelligence and wisdom. And that's not a trivial task, because it's really forcing us to ask, what is to be human? What is that which makes us different from artificial intelligence? And then again, I am breaking the mold. I am not going into the space where it's people are discussing that it's AI can never be as intelligent as human, or the human can do things better. Yes, but it's not about putting AI and human intelligence in competition with each other, but figuring out the synergy. And the synergy comes from what are our complementary differences. And we know that AI can process large volume of information rapidly and come up with pretty smart responses, even to complex questions, but it will not make ethical decisions for us, right? Mm-hmm. So that's our job. And when I am talking about wisdom-guided and wisdom-enhancing collaborative hybrid intelligence in teams and networks of human and AI agents working symbiotically. Symbiotically means that mutually enhancing each other. Like from the interaction, the AI is gaining some wisdom about us, and we are gaining some wisdom about the AI. And together, we are creating something that neither the AI alone, neither the human alone could have done. So
yeah, that's a classic definition of symbiosis, what we know from nature, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in my research, I'm going one step even beyond symbiosis. I'm interested in symbiosis.
Okay, explain that, please.
In symbiosis, two species, two organisms are exchanging information, resources for mutual benefits.
Correct, yeah.
In symbiosis, the emphasis is not on the mutual benefit, but beyond that, there's something new that they create together. So symbiosis is a Greek word, really means creating together. So that's what I am really focusing on.
Actually, more for the greater good, right?
Of course, yes. Yes, because that's also the difference between intelligence and wisdom, because, you know, for a couple of decades, I was a researcher in collective intelligence, and then I basically not abandoned, but graduated from that field, because collective intelligence can be also very nefarious, very negative consequences. Like there was a huge collective intelligence at play to create the first atom nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
that needs collective intelligence, or just robbing a bank by a team of gangsters, that needs collective intelligence.
Correct.
So, because
Yeah.
collective intelligence doesn't have value, it's value neutral. It can be negative or positive, used for either purpose. But wisdom
Exactly.
is a different thing. Wisdom is about for the benefit of other human beings. For
You could argue
ultimately,
that intelligence is a tool, and then which is value neutral, and the outcomes or the applications, depending in which value system you sit, right, have
yes,
a different shading or a different color. Yep.
right. So now I'm working with a company that I serve in the role of strategic advisor, along with other advisors and technologists and entrepreneurs, to build wisdom-guided AI systems that is based on creating positive value for the organizations, for their members, and ultimately for the benefit of all of humankind.
Is that organization, I don't know if you can share more about it, but do they have a specific mission or a product or a geography, something that they want to focus on? Or
Well, that's a Swedish company. So the initial geography, of course, is Sweden.
yeah.
And the product is AI-supported meeting facilitation, where the AI agent play a role of being a co-facilitator with the humans. I can't say much more about that at this stage because it's
Understand. Yeah.
still under development.
Yeah, understand. I a bit related to what you said earlier on, that what I keep thinking about it, and what sort of I'm undecided, is a bit if AI, or later on collective intelligence, if we keep developing that, where is that border between using machines as a support and delegating conscious or decision making to the machines, right? I mean, we've had this in science fiction movies, we have it in literature. These thoughts, they come up pretty regularly. So, I mean, I personally have a strong view. I would prefer machines to be symbiotic at very best, but that humans remain responsible for major decisions. But I would just be curious to see where you see that borderline evolving or developing to.
There are different kinds of decisions with different levels of complexity and different roles for AI and humans. We need the support, decision support from AI, but as you said, AI should remain in the support role, like an extreme version. When AI is making the decision, it's not something that I advocate for. It's just the opposite. You probably heard of autonomous weapons, where AI is selecting whom should the weapon shoot at based on certain parameters, but still, if AI is to identify the pattern matching, whether the pattern on the ground that the AI vision is seeing, whether it corresponds to what is in its program to kill that person or target, that's not ethically responsible use of AI.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
ultimate decision should be in the hands of people.
Or the slightly more civilian example is if one day we truly have autonomous cars and the car, in inverted commas, for whatever reason, decides to drive into a tree, right? Or basically cause third-party damage. So whose fault is it then, right?
Yeah, well, the autonomous car, and there are many challenging issues will come up, but that's not the reason to stop AI development.
Agree.
Fortunately, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people and institutions who are focusing on AI safety, regulations, AI alignment, how to build in some guardrails. And when we are talking about AI, of course, it's not one kind of thing, because the AI called Claude by Anthropic has a very strong safety constitution, and some other AIs may not have the same. So, but it's not a resolved issue. There will be always new issues and new challenges coming up. That's why what we need is wisdom-guided AI that can enhance our own wisdom to make the right decision, supported by AI, not the other way around.
Yeah. You mentioned something very important earlier on. I quite often get that impression when I talk with other people about the topic as well. So there's a misperception around that there is one AI somewhere in a mysterious cloud somewhere. And I think I'm really happy you actually mentioned that. I think we have a bit of explanation to do here to exactly make sure that there are different applications or machines, if you want to, in the background, depending on what the use case is, the purpose, and so on and so forth. That's probably, that could be one of the reasons why there is perceived fear and uncertainty about it, because a lot of people, as I said, think that there's some hidden secret machine somewhere.
Yeah. Well, in my own research, I am focusing on one kind of AI, one type of AI that I call developmental AI. AI which has one main function, and that is supporting human development, the evolution of our consciousness. And there are, of course, many other types of AI, but what I'm interested in is the developmental AI that is designed to help us become wiser, because that's the foundation for everything else, I think.
That the word wisdom, I mean, as sort of having been educated in Central Europe, it will probably, that word probably has some kind of connotation for me. I'm not sure how other cultures actually look at that word wisdom. I find it quite interesting, right?
Yeah, thank you for zeroing in on what wisdom is, because there are whole ashrams in the East, India, and other places, and academic departments dedicated to wisdom on the West. And so wisdom is just like many other foundational categories, many things for many different people. So maybe I just should focus on, in our conversation, the meaning in which I'm using that term. So wisdom for me is not a thing, it's not something. Wisdom is always relational.
It's contextual, yeah.
Contextual, relational, relative to something. So I would say that a person or a book or anything is wiser than something else if it is serves the well-being for more people on longer term. So obviously, a wiser person is capable to assess the longer term consequences of her decision. And the longer term consequences includes the transcontextual consequences, the consequences of the decision in a different context.
So it's in contemporary terms, there's a sustainability angle to it, right? And it's also deeply altruistic, right? If I hope I not putting the wrong words in your mouth.
I'm not a fan of sustainability because it's basically its focus maintaining what is. And with the wisdom attitude, we always want to reach for what it can become, the better, the more positive, what it can become. So wisdom is not only about well-being, but well-becoming. What is the next stage of development that we can aim for?
Yeah. If you allow me to pick up on one or two points you just made, and I need to be a bit careful. I'm threading a bit on thin ice here. I'm neither a philosopher nor a specialist in quantum physics, but I noticed when I read some of your older publications, you quite often use vocabulary which is probably from Indian mythology or even further east, right? So and then if you make a bit the analogy to quantum mechanics, if you push it hard enough, you also get at these very fundamental philosophical conversations. What is at the beginning, what is before the beginning, and so on and so forth. But my point is, I was wondering what inspired you to sometimes delve into vocabulary which is probably more from Hinduistic philosophies and other realms.
Do you happen to remember any specific terms that I used that you referred to?
I would have to go back to the links you read, but I think you just earlier on in our conversation you talked about ashrams and something out of the Indian philosophy. So I was just wondering how you or why you make the link between that hyper advanced contemporary big data AI and then linking it back to for example Indian philosophy. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, Well, in our times, that some friends of mine and others, some contemporary philosophers describes our era that after the modern era, as a historical era, comes the postmodern.
Mhm.
And these two are in kind of antagonistic relationship with each other. And then there is a new tendency that I am following closely with my attention, that's called metamodern. And metamodern is embracing all the previous value systems and brings them into harmony and oscillation with one another. So when we are talking about wisdom, we cannot just disregard the thousands and thousands of years of indigenous wisdom,
Mhm.
indigenous wisdom that is based on reverence for life, reverence for nature. And if AI is separate and constitutes itself in opposition to that kind of ancient wisdom, then it can lead to very tragic consequences. And there is also the wisdom of modernity that is manifest in the concept of progress. Well, progress brought us longer lifespan, general increased educational level of the population, higher level of
Incomes.
being,
Mhm.
incomes, all that. But it also brought lots of negative things, like people are alienated from their own work, they don't find joy. Work just became a way of making a living,
Yeah.
not for a creative self-expression. So in the metamodern wisdom, we transcend the negative aspects of the previous stages of wisdom and include in the design of AI everything that has been positive from the previous, including the Eastern traditions.
Mhm.
Like the Eastern tradition, actually, I should say in plural, because there are many, many different.
True, true.
But typically they put a great emphasis on the inner development. the inner development of human beings, the development of our spirit and consciousness, that's rather undervalued in modern Western society.
And at least as
And,
far as I know, they would also put a lot of emphasis on circularity, right?
Right, right.
Multiple more than what we from a, I would say, more traditional continental European point of view would do, yeah.
Yes, yes. And I have my own version of how to bring peace, the circular time of the East and the linear time of the West. I am turning them into a spiral because the spiral has elements of the circularity,
Yeah.
but the spiral doesn't return to the same point. The arcs of the spiral are expanding.
But actually, it's interesting, right? Because a circle and a line, the maximum they can do is touch each other. They can never become one, right? Whereas if you combine it into a spiral, you basically you encompass both properties. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So that is also spiral dynamics that I was trained in Amsterdam 20 years ago. And the spiral dynamics is one of the developmental theory and practice of human development. And so that's also informing my work with AI.
So that's hugely interesting, and I'm fascinated by those connections you are trying to make, both intellectually, of course, but also now with you being on the advisory board of a company. If and unfortunately time is running a little bit away from us, but if possible, can we just pick up on sort of your second point you raised with me up front when you talked about the wisdom-focused AI will forge or create an uncatchable strategic advantage. I'm not here sort of to get any secrets out of anybody, but could we maybe just hypothesize or speculate a little bit how that could, in any area, how that could manifest itself?
Yes, like let's take a software company, like any company that is developing AI. If they are using AI to create the best gadget, then they are in competition with many other companies who can use the same or similar AI development tools to create the best gadget. So everybody wants to be best in the world, and they want to become first coming out with the newer and shinier objects, and because the market is pushing them, who will be benefiting from the first movers advantage. So there is this race, and so they use the commoditized AI with various combinations, try to make the best combinations of available development tools to create the next.
Mhm. But
But,
essentially, it's just more of the same. It's incremental, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes they strike gold and they create something truly distinctive and revolutionary, like when OpenAI came out with ChatGPT in November 2022. That was a game changer. But if the leaders of the company are not only using the phrase that we do this for the benefit of all humanity, but they sincerely aim at omni-beneficial results, new AI that the whole of humanity can benefit from.
Mhm. That would take it to the absolutely next level. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's from a broader worldview and broader perspective. It's like raising above the noise of the marketplace, forgetting about the competition and seeing the whole field and addressing what are the most challenging conditions of humanity in this perfect storm of the polycrisis.
Mhm.
What are those issues that we have some competence and aspirations to address with AI solutions? So when they are taking that positions, then they will train the AI to be responsive to the root conditions of the polycrisis.
Mhm. I mean,
Not,
potentially in a positive sense, this could be so disruptive, right? In a positive sense.
yes, exactly. So wisdom guided AI is definitely will be disruptive because AI is good at already as coach, tutor, like many corporations, human resources have already introduced AI coaches, AI mentors. In education, they are using AI tutors. And yes, it would be like Elon Musk is aiming at that every student should have a personal AI-based tutor. So that's great. A tutor or a coach helps learning new skills, new capabilities.
Which is actually interesting, because on the other end of the spectrum, some countries in Europe are now seriously debating of getting rid of tablets and other electronic devices and go back to pencil and paper. I think somewhere in Scandinavia, but also in some schools in Switzerland, there is very strong votes to de-electronify them. So that'd be interesting to see which way we're going to take.
So the sense in which AI wisdom mentor will be disruptive to the AI coach industry, because the mentor is not about helping people learn new skills. Of course, that is also useful, but what the mentor does is helping people become a better human, more compassionate, wiser, being able to relate to reality from a broader perspective, from a higher value system.
Mm. It's a bit, it's wider than, but it's a bit akin to the Chinese proverb, right? You give somebody a fish, the person has food for a day, you teach somebody how to fish. That opens up completely new views of the world and different options and different opportunities, yeah.
Yeah.
George, maybe a bit more, bringing it a bit more down into sort of practicalities. I'm sure a lot of the people who listen to us or watch this, they'll be curious and interested to follow you and to follow the topic. So what's a good way of following you and other pundits of the CHI? Do you have a newsletter or something like that?
Well, most of my publications on Medium, like my username on Medium is Technoshaman.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to look at the overview of my work in progress book, the working title of which is The Rise of the Compassionate AI.
Mm-hmm.
In that overview article, there is the synopsis of the 4 volume of this serialized, interactive, multimodal book that I am working on. So that is an overview of my current work, and it goes into some details about more specific questions, and it also has a good list of my AI-related publications. And of course, there is the website of Future Hall, Center of Action Research for Regenerative Futures. And on the what section, there is the description of our research agenda. And yeah, it's good that you asked about the newsletter, because we are planning to launch one this fall. So I don't know when this conversation will be published. Maybe a couple of weeks later, I could put the URL or just a little note of people who want to stay in touch, give us the email that we are not going to spam. We are not going to spam them, but we will send them the newsletter.
Yeah. So thank you for asking. So what in inverted commas normally happens is this video will be part, I guess, of the October edition of the Club of Amsterdam newsletter. And what we will certainly do is all the links that you just URLs that you just referred to, we'll put them somewhere in the show notes. So that will definitely work. And then the linking of your newsletter to the Club of Amsterdam, I leave that to Felix and to you, because Felix Bob is the one who manages the communication in a wider sense of the word.
All right.
George, I would really like to thank you for taking the time and talking to me. It's a fascinating topic. So, dear listeners, dear viewers, I hope you're sort of as impressed and inspired as I am about what George has been telling us about CHI, particularly the symbiotically advancement. We're not talking about a neo-capitalist egoist approach, right? We're talking about a symbiotic advancement. So I'll be definitely subscribing to your newsletters, and I'm very curious what else we're going to hear from you over in the future, what we hear from you and what we read from you. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and farewell.
Thank you. Bye.